This is the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast, where divorce coach Corey Shapiro helps you get creative and not reactive in your divorce. Tune in now to get the support you need to make it through this difficult time. Here's your divorce coach, Corey Shapiro.
Welcome to the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast. I'm Corey Shapiro. We are back on this podcast with our regular programming because last week, if you have not caught it already, you can check out a great conversation I had with Ron Bavaro. He wrote this amazing book, An Elephant Doesn't Marry a Giraffe. It's available on Amazon. Please check it out. I think if you're in a divorce context, you will get a lot of value out of it. All right, but today we are back going through my book, Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind. As you know, each season we go through the book in bite-sized chunks. We are finishing chapter 2. We're finishing the sixth tool of the toolkit in chapter 2. That's what we're doing today. But before we get into that, and don't worry if you're like, I don't even know what the other six, what are you talking about, Corey? We'll touch briefly on each tool, but you can go check out the podcast on that. We did a podcast on each of the 6 tools, but today we'll focus a little bit on the 6th tool, which is understanding. And who better to talk to us about understanding than a quote from one of the best authors ever in this area is Dr. Stephen Covey. And his quote is, "Seek first to understand, then to be understood." I mean, we're not seeking to judge based on 1% of information. And for people who've read some of his work, one of the best stories that I remember, and I might be flibbing a little bit the actual fact, but this is just the gist of the story, which really hit home his message. And that's why you have to have good stories to learn. And actually, that's what Ron Bavaro in his book, he gave great stories. And that's why it really impacted me, and it will help you learn. But let's focus on the story from Dr. Covey that really made me understand this concept of seeking first to understand, then to be understood first. So this guy's on this subway, and these kids are all rowdy, and the parents sitting next to these kids. And the guy's like, can't you like control your kids? Are so rowdy in the subway. They're just, causing such a ruckus. And the father turned to him and said, well, I normally would, but their mom just died. Boom. It's like mic drop. You don't know where people are coming from. So don't judge people based on a book, based on 1% of what you see. It's all hidden below the surface. All right, so let's go forward in this podcast. Let's talk about these 6 tools. Let's just touch on them quickly. Tool number 1 is boundaries. And again, we have a podcast for each one of these. We just did it. But tool number 1 is boundaries. Got to have strong boundaries in divorce. Tool number 2, 24-hour pause. So important sometimes to take that break, take that little time away. Got that from Abraham Lincoln, who used to write letters and then not send them. Now, tool number 3 is the mental distance. Can you put things out of your head into a story? Maybe what we talked about as a snow globe. Can you do that? Give you some perspective. And if you want more perspective, how about some mental time travel? And that's tool number 4. How are things going to impact you in 10 hours, 10 days, 10 months, 10 years? And tool number 5 is staying grounded. Not fantasizing what's going to happen necessarily and thinking the grass is always going to be greener. Sometimes it's better, but maybe not. That's staying grounded. But today we're focusing on the ultimate power play, which is understanding. So that's our brief review on the 6 tools. And let's just get into this one. Understanding. Why is that so important? I'm asking you, why is that so important? You can't learn if you're just listening to this podcast and you're walking along and you're checking your phone. You can't just learn doing that. So let's bring you back. And think, why is it important to understand first? I just want to tell the other person what I want. Why do I care what they want? Anyone in this class? Anyone who's listening? Any feedback? Yeah. If you're thinking this, you're on the right path. The path is no one cares about you and your positions until you care about them. That's the key. My only, I guess, PhD wrinkle to that is some people want, you to feel unhappy so they will feel happy. It's a codependent situation. In those types of situations, it's very hard to surface what is really going on. What's really below the surface. You're not going to be able to do it. So if you're in one of those situations where you're trying to understand, but all you're hearing is, such negative judgments and criticisms and really off the wall stuff about you, they're just attacking your character. You might be in one of these situations. And I would suggest in that situation, you might need someone to come into this conversation if they are open to it, to surface what's going on. So like a trained mediator, a therapist, and that might help surface. And if you're the person listening to this, and don't worry, we all have bad thoughts once in a while, and thinking, yeah, that's really what I want. I want that person to be unhappy for what they did to me, for the pain they caused me. That will make me happy. So yes, that's what I want. I appreciate where you're coming from. Might not be the only way. What you might want to consider is maybe venting this emotion, and it has to be vented. You have to grieve yourself. You could vent to a friend. You could vent to your own therapist, maybe even your dog on a dog walk, maybe even journaling, getting it out of your head. So those are the idea there is really to try to understand. But some people, they're just going to come after you, and you might need some really good help if you're going to get anywhere. In another context, there was a great movie in the 1990s by the amazing Barry Levinson. It was called Avalon, and there's a famous scene from this movie for those people who haven't watched it, where it's about a Thanksgiving dinner, more like a late lunch, but Thanksgiving dinner or meal. And the whole family's sitting, and one family member is historically late to these family events, but they usually wait for him, right? They usually wait for him. But this time they were just tired of waiting for him. The kids were hungry. They were waiting, all these people at this Thanksgiving meal, and they started the meal without him. And of course, they're eating, they're enjoying, the kids are happy. Who comes walking in? This guy, I think the brother of the head of the family. The guy comes in and says the most famous line in the movie: "You cut the turkey, you started without me, and it blew up into this big thing." And they just never talked really, So in that movie, is it really about cutting the turkey? Is that really what's going on? I'm going to call that the position. Just like in a divorce, is it really about what they're saying? I want to get X amount in child support. Is it really about that? Or it's really what's below that? In a divorce context, is it really about feeling financially secure? And this is what you think you need to feel secure. Maybe in Avalon, how he felt such disrespect and distance that these people wouldn't wait for him. Or maybe it was a, psychological play where he was testing his family, how much they're really going to wait for him, because it's, how late can I be to see until they cut the turkey? All these are under the surface. They become really complicated. And that's what's coming. That's what Dr. Covey's talking about. We're trying to understand. If you can't understand yourself, just a normal dialogue. In Avalon, they couldn't have a normal dialogue. Most couples who are going through divorce, please reach out to a couples therapist or a skilled mediator. But if you have this conversation, and some people finally have this conversation in court, I hope you get some of the judges I've appeared before who have shown such empathy, such warmth, such understanding. Not all judges are going to, bite your head off Some judges are first following Dr. Covey's principle. Let me understand your situation. Let me see if there's another way we can do this. But if we can't, the judge will say, I'm always available to make decisions, to have a trial, to move forward. I'm just trying to find the least expensive, most direct way through this problem. That's a good judge. And you might not get a good judge, but I hope you do if you find yourself in court. So thank you for listening or watching if you're checking this out on YouTube. And then before you go, if you read my book, Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind, I would really appreciate a review on Amazon. And if you have not read it, it's available on Amazon in paperback, in ebook. It's also available on your library. And if it's not available at your specific library, ask your library to get it. You can also listen to the audiobook on Spotify and Audible. Next week, we're moving on to chapter 3. Focus on what you can control. Well, that's the only thing you can do in life is focus on what you can control. Nothing different than in a divorce. So chapter 3, we're going to start next time I see you on focusing on what you can control. Remember, until then, please be creative. Take that pause. Be creative, not reactive in your divorce. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind podcast with divorce coach Corey Shapiro. Divorce can be a difficult and overwhelming process, but it doesn't have to be. Corey's book, Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind, is here to help you gain clarity, composure, and a strategic mindset. Get it now as an ebook on Amazon or an audiobook on Audible, and unlock the power of these resources to make more informed decisions and gain better understanding of the process. This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.